I'm Mick Rowe, an actor and presenter from Penistone. My brother took his own life in 1996, over 25 years ago now. I feel that suicide is as much of a stigma now as it was then, despite the efforts that are currently ongoing to get people talking. In 2020, there were 4,912 deaths by suicide in the UK. I wanted to make this documentary to get people talking unashamedly about suicide. I started on my very own doorstep. I put a post on the Facebook group Community Action Penistone and asked if anyone had any stories they'd like to share. I was overwhelmed by the response, and it proved that people definitely did want to talk about suicide. This documentary shares the stories of 4 people who have either lost a loved one to suicide or have had suicidal thoughts. Jess was the first lady to get in touch, and she shares her experiences of how overwhelming life can get sometimes.
So a lot led up to the situation I was in at the time. So I'm a veterinary nurse, and in that job role there's a lot of stress, a lot of mental health issues that surround that job. And at the time I was one nurse running the whole place, which just got me overwhelmed. I had no support from sort of higher up. They didn't really realise I was on my own, which I don't really believe at the time. And I had a relationship breakdown, which didn't help, and they didn't help with my thought process. And another situation was going on in my life where I had an emotional abuse situation going on, which also didn't help. So 3 factors just put me in that situation, which I didn't really want to be in. I think when people ask, I want to be a veterinary nurse, I do not try and put them off, but tell them it is a very stressful job. You need to be very sound-minded and able to cope. The hours, you work really long hours. It's not a 9-to-5 job. You're never guaranteed to leave on time. You get sort of daily abuse of clients shouting at you on the phone or coming into practice, threatening you, threatening staff. We have to have signs up saying 0 tolerance to always obviously do anything. And also if you do a really critical day, unfortunately like a euthanasia, or a patient unfortunately loses a life, you just have to unfortunately just carry on. You don't have time to grieve, you're just expected to carry on with your day, and that just builds up and builds up. And it's a really short-staffed environment, so at the minute veterinary is struggling. There's no vets, no nurses, so places are literally running on minimum staff, and it is really stressful. You never get guaranteed to leave on time. So on that day I did ring the police because I didn't know who to ring. It sounds daft, but I didn't know the Good Samaritan's number to ring, because I know there is that, but my mind went blank, and the police did come out to me, which did help, but it was just someone to sit and listen, but they were unsure of what to do in that situation. I think I just realised that it sounds daft, but my car stopped me. So my car's my passion, and I just thought, why am I doing something like this? It's stupid. No job and no person that's made me feel like this deserves to have this on me. And I just thought I'm gonna beat it. But I just thought I'm not letting this win. I want to beat this, and I'm gonna come out stronger. They took me home, and I think my parents didn't know obviously what was going on. And I think when the police explained to my parents, it was just somebody to talk to, because I just didn't know how to spark that subject with my parents. And only my mum and dad and sister know about what happened. Nobody else knows. Only certain close friends do know. But I think having them there and then meeting my current partner got me out of it. And I pretty much owe him my life. That's how I feel. But he got me out of the situation I was in. He messaged me on Facebook and realised things I was posting I just didn't see myself, and just said, come meet for a drink, no strings attached. And we just had common interests, and he's been in similar situations, and he could just relate and just sat and listen to me. And it was just somebody that just understood. It wasn't explained to a total stranger as such, but he just totally understood my mindset, and it was just an instant connection with him, and I've been with him ever since. And nowadays I can talk to people people that I work with now who I don't really know. I'm happy to talk about it. I don't want anyone's pity. I just think it needs to be more normalised. It's not it happens all the time. It probably happens daily. You know, people just don't know how to reach out. But I think talking really does help, and it's not a scary subject. You shouldn't feel upset talking about it. It's a strong thing. You should feel like empowered almost. Telling a story just helps other people understand they're not on their own. There's loads of people like it, and people that you wouldn't even think are capable of doing something like that, if that makes sense. Like, my partner looked at me and thought, I wouldn't think you're the sort of person to have mental health issues. You always seemed happy, and it can just be a front. You know, people are totally different behind closed doors. So I'm part of a lot of car groups, so some that are just only girls, some that are, girls and boys basically in the group, and it's a lot of people in the car community who do suffer mental health, and their cars are their sort of lease their way out, their antidepressant basically. And in some of the car groups, a lot of people suffer mental health, and they do what's called a friend request, and it's a post to basically put your name, where you're from, a bit about you, like relationship status, any pets, what you drive, hobbies, and people look through and will add you and message you as a friend, and it's just somebody there to reach out to. And the car community does support mental health. They do a lot for charity, raising money. The car community have done sort of stickers to try and normalise it, and it's people to talk to. You can just message anybody on a page and they'll talk to you, and they totally understand, and nobody judges you, and they'll come out and just they'll offer there's car meets so you can get to know people, and you may have never met them, but you're already like the friend because you've got that common interest, and it's been a passion of my life since I was like 3 or 4.
So Jess's experience is ultimately a positive one. She was able to reach out and get the help that she needed, and by working through her suicidal thoughts, they passed. Now, according to the mental health charity Mind, 1 in 5 of us have suicidal thoughts or feelings, and that's just the people who are answering that question honestly. So it could be more than that. So that means that 1 in 5 mates sat in a pub, 1 of you could be having suicidal thoughts. Having a coffee break at work, 5 of you, 1 of you again is having suicidal thoughts. This has surely got to be something that we talk about openly. Now, the lady that I'm going to see next is Nicola, and her experience with suicide is very different to Jess's, and it basically highlights the need to take anybody who has suicidal thoughts seriously.
Well, yeah, my husband was David, who was life and soul at party. He started feeling down and had a lot of anxiety about a week before he eventually passed away, and he went to the doctors to seek help, told the doctor he wanted to take his own life, and went into detail about what he wanted to do to take his own life, and the doctor eventually let him go home. I don't think there were enough done on that day it weren't satisfactory to what should have been done, really. Whether that meant him being referred to a hospital straight away or what, I don't know, but I don't think the answer was to send him home.
And how did you get any support afterwards?
There weren't any. No. They always say that, don't they? Whenever it's anything like that's on news, the family are being supported by specialist officers. No, they're not. You don't hear anything again for months.
Were you not signposted to a group or?
We got phoned on Boxing Day by a doctor to say we're sorry and didn't want any antidepressants. I couldn't bring myself to talk about it at first. I couldn't even say the word suicide for a long time. But yeah, you get a mixture of your genuine friends and family and nosy people who just want to know all your business, and while you're in shock and everything, it just sort of passes by in a blur really, and your recollections of them times thankfully aren't that clear now. But I sought out help afterwards. Well, I went for some bereavement counselling about 14-15 months afterwards, through my private health care that I have. I got involved with CARM more because my brother eventually, I think it was about 4 months after David died, my brother, my cousin and one of my friends did a triathlon in York for that charity, and ever since then various friends, colleagues, family have all raised money for it since then. So yeah, we're more aware of CARM as a charity, and obviously there's Mind, which is another well-known one. But yeah, I mean, it always resonates, even if you read somebody's missing online, you know, and there's an appeal, has anyone seen this person, because you know what they're going through. Or if your police helicopter go over and somebody's complaining it's making a noise, and you think, oh yeah, and I know what somebody's going through because of that, you know.
A couple of things struck me about Nicola's story. The first was that if somebody actually did confide in me and tell me that they were having suicidal thoughts, would I know what to do? Well, a quick internet search led me to the Samaritans website, and on there's a comprehensive 7-point guide with bullet points on what to do if you're ever in that position. There's even some videos that you can watch, and there's also a safety plan that you can print out and fill in with someone who is suffering from suicidal thoughts. According to Papyrus, suicide is the biggest killer in under 35-year-olds in the UK. And the World Health Organization states that suicide is the 4th biggest killer in the age ranges of 15 to 19. Now, my son is currently 18, and it scares me. And I feel that perhaps one way of, you know, encouraging people to talk about suicide is to at least give our kids the tools that they need to help somebody if a friend of theirs were to tell them that they were having suicidal thoughts. Nicola also mentioned the charity CARM, which I'd never heard of before. And CARM actually stands for the Campaign Against Living Miserably, which I think is great. It's honest. I did a search to have a look at what CARM does, and I was pleasantly surprised by the language that they use on their website. They basically say that they are all about standing up against feeling shit. I like that, you know, there's no sugarcoating it. And I think that's what we all need to do. We all need to be honest about the fact that, you know, some days we all feel crap. And if we're feeling crap, we need to know that there are places that we can go to talk about it. One group that is on the rise at the moment is Andy's Man Club, and I wanted to find out a little bit more about what it is and who it's for. So I went along to see Ollie.
So my name's Ollie. I'm a project development champion for Andy's Man Club. I've been involved with Andy's Man Club since the very first session that we had way back in 2016. I was going through some personal struggles at that point in my life, and issues that I'd not really spoken to anybody about. I was just trying to get on with each day, get up and go to work and brush everything else to one side. There was a point where I realised I was no longer able to do that. Things were getting sort of out of control, and I was getting some really dark thoughts. So I went to the doctor and he signed me off work with depression. And it was during that 6-week period that I was off work where that first Andy's Man Club session was held. I don't know whether it was fate or just good luck or whatever, but here I am now, 5.5 years later, employed by the charity. I oversee about a quarter of our volunteers. We've got about 450 volunteers nationwide, and I look after about a quarter of our clubs. So Andy's Man Club is a peer-to-peer support group. We're a non-professional organisation. We don't have any counsellors, we don't have any psychologists or anything like that. We just bring guys together, guys from all different walks of life, all different backgrounds, who have one common interest, if you like, and that is self-improvement. Those guys might be various stages along their own mental health journey, but they want to make positive strides and they want to get better. We've got guys who've come down because they've attempted suicide themselves. We've got guys who've come down because they've lost people to suicide and they want to understand why, they want to understand more about how somebody could get to that stage in the first place. That being said, you don't have to have had a mental health condition to come to Andy's Man Club. You don't have to have had suicidal thoughts. You might just have had a rubbish week and want somewhere to go and get stuff off your chest. The groups are run by other guys who might have been in a similar position. They've gone a little bit further on their own journey and now open the doors to other guys coming through. So anybody who's attending Andy's Man Club for the first time will be met with the warmth and empathy of somebody who understands, somebody who's walked a mile in their shoes and can really empathise with their situation. So Andy's Man Club was founded back in 2016 following the death of a young man named Andy Roberts, who unfortunately took his own life at the age of 23. His mum and his brother-in-law decided that they wanted to set up something to help guys who might have been in a similar situation to Andy and felt like they had nowhere to go to talk. So they initially set up what they thought was going to be a coffee club, a place where guys could go and talk over a brew about anything that might be bothering them before their emotions and feelings got out of control. The idea being that if they could save just one man, then it'd all have been worthwhile, and that if Andy had had somewhere where he could have gone to talk, then he might still be here today. Now, 5.5 years later, we've got about 1,700 lads a week attending Andy's Man Club sessions across the UK. Those are guys who are on various stages of their own mental health journeys. It could be, their brothers, uncles, husbands. They all mean something to somebody, and those guys are still here today because they've managed to find somewhere to go and get stuff off the chest and talk about those feelings, those problems in a secure and non-judgmental environment, free from all the stigmas of how a man should appear and what's expected of a man. And a lot of the guys do say that an Andy's Man Club session on the Monday night is the only place where they can truly be themselves. It's the only place where they can be open and honest about how they're feeling without that fear of embarrassment or burdening somebody else, or that judgment that might come from colleagues or friends in the pub or wherever it might be. So we've currently got 77 groups across the country, and we've got another 15 groups opening in the next 6 weeks. If anybody is outside of our current catchment areas, we also run online sessions, which are open to anybody around the UK, any man in the UK over the age of 18. Our groups all run on a Monday night from 7 till 9 PM, excluding bank holidays. And if you want any more information, please do get in touch. Just email info@andysmanclub.co.uk and the ladies in the office will be able to point you in the right direction.
Listening to Ollie, I found quite overwhelming, and it made me quite emotional listening to him speak about such an amazing club that people can get involved in. I can't help but wonder that if there'd have been a club like that around 26 years ago when my brother was suffering, then maybe the story would have been a different one for his life. It's fantastic that so many of these clubs are springing up all over. I mean, Andy's Man Club is taking the world by storm. And another club that is very close to my heart is a Facebook support group called Battle Buddy RV1. And so if you can't get to a club potentially, you know, maybe reach out to Battle Buddy RV1. Mary lost her mum when she was only 9 years old. And for her, at that age, there certainly wasn't a group that she could go to.
So I lost my mum to suicide when I was 9 years old. Growing up without a mum was tough. It was lonely, and feeling you couldn't talk freely about what happened made it 10 times worse. I think people pick up on the fact that you're not talking about your mum, and you can almost see the cogs turning in the head. And some people will be brave and ask the question, some people won't. Those that do ask the question, I find, tend to regret it quite quickly when they get the answer. You know, I understand it makes people feel quite uncomfortable. Some people want to move on quickly, some people want to probe further. Everyone wants to ask how. Even if they don't say the words, you can see them thinking it. I'm not sure whether that's a good thing or not that people ask those questions. I'm 37 now and I still don't really have a lot of the answers. I think all I know really is that it would have been a lot easier if she had died in any other way than that. When somebody dies by suicide, it's mental illness that's killed them. In the same way, when someone dies from cancer or heart disease, it's the health condition that's killed them. No one says that's selfish. I was 9 when my mum took her own life. Her name was Catherine. She loved animals, especially dogs and horses, and I truly believed that she loved her children too. There's a lot of shame tied up in suicide, and that makes it so much harder for those people who are left behind. You do always wonder if you could have done something more. I think that's natural, I think it's human. I think it makes it really hard. There are times when I desperately, desperately wish that she would have died in any other way than that. I just think everything would have been so much easier. I honestly think that by removing some of the shame and some of the stigma around suicide, that lives could be saved.
Shame and guilt are two words that are commonly used when talking about suicide. I interviewed over 20 people through my research for this documentary, and whether it was someone who had lost somebody to suicide or someone who had had suicidal thoughts or tried to take their own life, it was these emotions that really hit a nerve. Guilt can eat away at us. It can cause physical symptoms, self-doubt, decreased self-esteem and shame. We need to talk about these feelings in order to take control of them. The last person to share their story with me was Sam. He talks about a dark time in his life, and his story helps to highlight the positive effects of owning your feelings.
It was kind of like a sea of black emotions what, you know, crashed over me at certain points. But I weren't able to identify why that had happened or why I felt like that, which kind of made me kind of feel isolated, which then made me didn't really want to talk to people about it because I felt like it was my problem and my issue. My thoughts just used to spiral round. It felt like there was an hurricane in my head, and it had set off with one little thing and then it'd catch on to another thing and it'd just get worse and worse and spiral till a point where it felt like there was no way you could actually get back to the state of mind you were at before. I didn't want my family to worry about it, but then again that's kind of when I was saying I wanted to get myself out of it because I didn't want my family to worry about it. I didn't want my friends to worry about me because it felt like it was my issue. There were only me experiencing this in my own head. That added pressure of the attention and, you know, feeling like I've made other people upset or disappointed in me or that kind of thing. I hate to say it, but it did like make me feel bad. Now I've come out and I understand that we were only looking out for me at the end of the day, and that's what I'd do to anyone else really. But and that's probably a part and parcel of the hurricane. What I felt inside my head, the hurricane and negativity. We were just picking. It couldn't see a positive, you know. It couldn't see, oh, they're just your friends looking out for you. It's kind of only seeing the negative, the bad light in everything. You can't see the future. You can't even see an hour into the future. But one thing I learned, well, obviously the most helpful thing what I could give to anyone is just talk. And all them times my friends and family kind of wanted me to talk, but I didn't want to because I felt like I was being a burden. They were just trying to get me to talk, to understand. And I know, even because I didn't understand what was going off in my head, so I couldn't really tell them how I felt exactly. But when I did talk about it, it did feel like I kind of released something out of my chest. You know, weights from my shoulders did get removed. And then when I obviously got help from professionals and CBT and counselling, I don't know, it just kind of shone a different light on myself, because I've been living in this place of negativity. But then when I talk to someone else and we like transcribe different ideas and stuff and different ways of thinking, it kind of like opened a door to new ideas. I want more accepted to new ideas rather than just being in that mindset. It will, you know, it's kind of like living on a terraced house street with one window, and other side of road's a brick wall. If you're only going to see that brick wall, you don't know what your house looks like. You know what I mean? But if you then go onto another side of the street and there's another window, and then you look out onto your wall, you can kind of look at yourself retrospectively. And that's where I felt like I did once I seeked help from, obviously, professionals. When you go out with young lads, it's not often they talk about mental health, and there's a stigma almost, you know. And it's only been in the last 5 or 6 years when it's kind of been brought to mainstream and accepted as an actual illness and a problem. So that talking really helped me kind of just get everything out of my head, which then made me feel like I could start anew almost. Like I've got a passion for music and art and films and stuff, but kind of music helped me a lot. One band what kind of I've always liked, called Grateful Dead, and after obviously my attempt and stuff, when I listened to Grateful Dead, and even just the name kind of resonated something in me. Still to this day I don't understand that, but just the name alone, Grateful Dead, it kind of like I don't know, it meant something. Obviously the name Grateful Dead sounds quite morbid. It sounds, you know, it sounds quite dark, but their music is kind of a contrast to that. They were a 60s band who kind of started the psychedelic movement in America, and it's just hippified music, just joyful kind of country rhythms and rhythm and blues kind of stuff. Even now, you know, we all have bad days. You can't ever remove the bad days from your life, you know, because they are bound to happen. It's just a natural human emotion. But if I feel bad nah, you know, I'll just put some headphones in and go for a walk and just kind of, you know, just walk past it, walk through it, see new sights, get new ideas in my head, try and flatten that thought out of my head, basically. And obviously talking helped, music helped, but I got recommended a book by Eckhart Tolle, I think his name is, The Power of Now. And I read that book. I've read it about 5 or 6 times. I've lent it to people who have been struggling and stuff, and it just makes you understand like your presence in the now and the present moment, and living for that present moment, not dragging yourself into the past, not looking too forward into the future. I don't know, something about that book just resonated in my head, and I feel like that were a way where I could retrain my mind into not being so involved with these negative thoughts. If I feel negative nowadays, I take my son out for a walk, I've got headphones in, I still listen to Grateful Dead and other music like that. And yeah, rather than it's very easy when you're feeling, you know, in that dark place to put some dark music on and kind of wallow away and start that spiral, because that music and films or whatever, it kind of comforts you in feeling a specific way, you know, negative, but realistically that it don't really comfort you. It's just trying, you know, it's making you worse. It's starting that spiral. It's starting to collect them negative thoughts, and you know, until you get to a point where you can't see the future, you can't see a way past how you feel. There's even like little things that when I feel shit, I just kind of shake my head right fast, and I feel like I'm in like a little car wash for a minute, and it just gets all the dirt and negative thoughts out of my face. You know, ever since I've been young, I've never really wanted to kind of develop into a career. You know, I've never thought, oh, I want to be this, I want to be that, which kind of made me feel like I were a bit lost in life. But that's actually fine, you know, it's fine to be like that. That's what I've realised, you know. But you've just got to make your own path, essentially, and, you know, just kind of believe in yourself and surround yourself with people who you love.